start today's video, be sure to wish Stick-You a happy birthday in the comments. It was on the 24th of September, so be sure to make him happy and wish him a happy belated birthday. And now, let's start the video. When the Wii U first came out, my brothers and I quickly got one. And with all of the things we did on it, I am so glad we did. The Wii U had a variety of games, but there were a few that the three of us would play until our fingers were numb. We had Wii Party U, New Super Mario Bros. U, and the hidden gem known as Nintendo Land. For those of you who don't know, Nintendo Land is a theme park filled with 12 attractions, starring some of Nintendo's best and most famous characters, and it's all hosted by a TV screen with one arm, a hat, and a bow tie. Her name is Monia. Well, okay, I guess the game's not exactly a hidden gem. It was a well-known game at the time, and it even came in the Wii U Deluxe set, which is cool, I guess. However, its popularity slowly decreased over the years, and it was eventually lost to time. Granted, it does have a bit of a cult following, but I really think it deserves more than that, which is why I'm going to give it the recognition it deserves through this video. So be sure to hit the subscribe button so more people can see this, and without further ado, here's my official ranking list of Nintendo Land. 14. Octopus Dance. Yeah, that's right. I'm so bad at this game, I had to draw my twin brother here instead of me. I mean, I'm in the background, but still. Every single attraction in Nintendo Land utilizes the mechanics of the Wii U gamepad incredibly well, and Octopus Dance is no different. However, I don't really like the reverse controls, and I'm also not the best at rhythm games, or memory games. I've watched my twin brother play this many times, and whenever I do, all I can think of is, man, he's good. How's he even doing that? And this is all without mentioning that the game slowly gets harder. As you go through the stages, you'll get turned around several times, you have to start shaking the gamepad to jump, and there's even a robot octopus that squirts ink on your screen. It's miserable, and failing too much will end your run, sending you all the way back to stage 1. I hate it. Also, it's not too pleasant watching yourself get manhandled by an octopus if you lose all of your hearts. If you know, you know. It's not pretty. 13. The Coin Game. Yes, I'm including this on this list. It's a simple pachinko-like game that only uses the A button. You collect coins by playing the attractions, and you can use them here as tokens that get dropped in. The goal of the game is to go stage by stage using the coins to hit every one of these little blue circles to turn them orange. Hit them all, and you move on to the next stage. It's by far the most simple game in Nintendo Land, and while there is a bit of strategy to it, it's mostly luck-based. But on the bright side, there is a bit of variety to it when you have to deal with obstacles like bumpers, as well as the godforsaken skulls that reset the entire stage if you hit them. But the best thing about this game by far is that when you clear a stage, you're rewarded with a prize that can be used to change the ambiance, the music, or just to decorate the park. And guess what? There are a whopping 200 prizes to collect in total. Yeah. The feeling you get as you see Nintendo Land slowly fill up with displays is just incredible. Too bad the game itself is just boringly tedious and repetitive. Also, sorry I didn't draw a picture for this game. It would just be way too hard to get all of the pixels. 12. Yoshi's Fruit Cart. Now would probably be a good time to mention just how visually stunning this game is. Everything in Nintendo Land looks like it's made from wood or plush, and I love it. It all looks like a toy world, and it's nothing like Nintendo had ever done before, and they still have yet to replicate it. But with that out of the way, let me get into the attraction. Yoshi's Fruit Cart is mediocre, to say the least. You have to draw a path on the gamepad to ride your Yoshi to get every fruit on the screen, then to the exit door. However, there's a catch. Because while you can see everything on the TV screen, the gamepad is completely empty, meaning you need to use your hand-eye coordination to make sure you get every fruit. Because if you don't, the exit door won't open. Unfortunately, my hand-eye coordination sucks, meaning I cannot do well at this game for the life of me. I just find it so annoying. However, this game does manage to keep things fresh with a variety of things such as obstacles, optional presents that give you coins, special mystery doors that let you skip several levels at once, and you might even have to collect the fruits in a specific order, all while making sure Yoshi doesn't get too tired because, oh yeah, moving drains his stamina, and it's the fruits that refill it. Oh, and Yoshi might occasionally poop out an egg or two, but that's fine. This game is fine. It's just that I personally don't prefer it. 11. Takamarus Ninja Castle. Did that many people really even know about Takamarus before Nintendo Land? Pretty sure they didn't, because the mysterious Marasami Castle was a Japan-exclusive Famicom title. Regardless, that didn't stop him from getting his own attraction in Nintendo Land, and it's a pretty good game for what it's worth. But can we just take a second to remember how Nintendo marketed this game as a theme park filled with their best and most well-known franchises, yet you have games from franchises like this, Balloon Fighter, and Game & Watch? It just makes you wonder, why? But anyway, let me get back to talking about the attraction itself. You play as Takamaru, and you're on a quest to save Princess Monita from the evil Murasame. You go through 4 levels, or scenes as the game calls them, plus a bonus stage where you break pots which could hold hearts, coins, ninjas, and scrolls, which is something I'll get to later. You go through the game throwing ninja stars at hordes of origami ninjas, which is actually pretty smart considering scissors beats paper. Or, in this case, shurikens. Actually, are they even paper? They might be wood. Or cardboard. I don't know. Anyway, you can carry 50 shurikens, and if you run out, which I guarantee you will, you can easily refill them by flicking the gamepad up for a split second. Unfortunately, a good chunk of the ninjas will throw things back at you, such as other shurikens or clay bombs. Actually, there are some really cool abilities you can collect throughout the game that give you powers for a few seconds when you use them. There are 3 kinds of abilities. The ability to throw clay bombs, the ability to throw 3 ninja stars at a time, and the ability to slow down time. They're great. Plus, once you collect the abilities, you keep them forever. Not for the rest of the run, forever. Granted, using any of the powers will cost you a scroll, which are hidden throughout the stages, but I'd say it's more than fair given how incredibly overpowered the abilities are. It just means that you'll have to use up a scroll. Also, here's something I didn't know before writing the script. After you beat the game, Monita sits, or floats, I guess, on the left side of the screen expressing her gratitude for rescuing her before you see your final stats and the game ends. However, apparently if you throw a few ninja stars at her while she's doing this, she turns into a mask and reveals that you didn't save the princess, you saved a faker. After this, you unlock a hard mode of the game where you can only hold 30 shurikens as opposed to the regular 50. So, with all of these great features, why is this attraction so low on the list? Well, not only are a lot of the other attractions better for reasons I have yet to get to, but you throw ninja stars by holding the gamepad sideways and swiping up. It's fine at first, but do it for more than a few minutes and your arm will hurt. Bad. 10. Captain Falcon's Twister Race. Yet another single-player attraction, Captain Falcon's Twister Race is a high-speed race against time to get to the goal. However, it's much more complicated than that. During your fast-paced escapades, you'll come across plenty of obstacles and hazards that are bound to keep you on your toes. You've got stuff like road spikes and other ships that'll slow you down if you hit them. You've got speed boosts and ramps that'll give you an extra push, and you'll even encounter twisters and pillars that can stop you in your tracks. However, the worst obstacle in this game by far is the bomb, because guess what happens if you so much as touch it? That's right, it explodes and ends your entire run. I hate it. However, the bombs and the ramps are the only 2 things that can give you a game over if you don't count the time limit, so as long as your ship doesn't blow up or fly off the track, the timer's the only real problem. But then why is this game at number 10? Well, not only do time limits stress me out beyond belief, but neither me nor my brothers have ever gotten through all 12 areas, much less the 12 extra ones you unlock only after beating the game a first time. We always blew up, and I can say with confidence that the main reason for that is the bombs. Yeah. But hey, at least some of the stages have goodies in them. It's cool because the TV shows the game from behind the ship, while the gamepad shows you a bird's eye view. This means you'll have to look back and forth between them if you want to get everything, such as the speed boosts and coins hidden under the checkpoint gates, or that one invincibility star that's hidden under a pillar, which, oh yeah, there's invincibility stars in this game. When you get one, it gives you a short period of invulnerability to all obstacles, and man, does it feel good to be a speed demon and a god for a few seconds. 9. Animal Crossing Sweet Day. Well, this was bound to happen eventually. Here we have the first multiplayer attraction on this list, coming in the form of Animal Crossing Sweet Day. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad game by any means, but I definitely think it's the worst of the games that can be played with friends. The gamepad plays as 2 characters, Copper, a brown dog who wields a knife and is controlled with the right stick and ZR button, and Bucker, a blue dog who carries around a fork and is controlled using the left stick and ZL button. As for the Wii remotes, they can control one of 4 Animal Crossing villagers. Player 1 is a blue elephant named Dizzy, Player 2 is a pink squirrel named Peanut, Player 3 is a green frog named Lily, and Player 4 is an orange cat named Tangy. The villagers have to run around collecting candy while also trying to avoid being tackled by the guards. If the villagers hold enough candy at once, they win, unless there's only one villager, in which case they drop candy into dishes rather than holding it, and if the guards can tackle the villagers a collective number of 3 times, then they win instead. Now, there is some strategy to it, considering that the villagers get slower the more candy they have, meaning they might have to drop some to outrun a guard, as well as how getting tackled makes a villager drop a bunch of candy in exchange for a few seconds of super speed and invincibility, and how the guards can work together to just straight up corner somebody. And this is all without mentioning the candy trees scattered everywhere that drop a ton of goodies if enough people stand on the buttons beneath them. But the main reason this game is the worst multiplayer game isn't actually because of the gameplay itself, but rather because of how there's only a measly 2 stages to play on, neither of which have any special gimmicks or features whatsoever. It gets boring very quickly, and that's why I put this attraction where I did. 8. Balloon Trip Breeze. Here's one of the 2 solo attractions that actually rank above a multiplayer one, this one being Balloon Trip Breeze. This is yet another attraction based on a game that's not too well known, especially by the younger generations. Regardless, the game is like Captain Falcon's Twister Race in a way. It's simple on the surface, but there are some obstacles and hazards that add a good amount of depth to the experience. You play as not a me, but as the wind, as you swipe on the screen to create gusts of wind that move your me around. However, there's also tons of balloons floating around that give you points when you pop them, as well as spikes, bricks, other winds, electricity, and tons of other balloon fighters that will try to stop you. Some will even have weapons. Thankfully, there are also power-ups, such as a stopwatch that slows down time for a few seconds, a pill that shrinks you for a bit, a spiked ball that weighs you down but also destroys obstacles instantly, and even a present. It may dangle below you and slow you down, but you get a bonus if you get it to the end of the level. Just make sure it doesn't get knocked off of you in the process. Speaking of the end of the levels, there's even a little podium that'll give you bonus points depending on where you land on it. If you land on it, that is. If you don't worry. There are 25 levels with different weathers and times of day, so you'll get plenty of chances to perfect your aim and go for the best spot on the podium. Also, I know I mentioned that this game is a bit like Captain Falcon's Twister Race, and there's a couple of other things that support this. For one, the gamepad and the TV have different perspectives, just like in that game. Kind of. You get an average side-scrolling view on the TV, but on the gamepad, it's zoomed in to the point where you mainly just see yourself rather than what's around you. The other thing that the 2 attractions have in common is that I haven't beaten Balloon Trip Breeze either. But so what? It's because I'm always too busy wasting my life in the better attractions. Whatever, man. I don't need to clarify to you that I suck at this game too much to beat it. Oh, and before I move on, let me give you a quick word of advice. Don't get too close to the ocean. Just don't, because if you do, you'll go from a balloon boy to fish food in seconds. 7. Attraction Tour. Attraction Tour is a game mode in which you and your friends take turns going head-to-head in an intense competition to get the most points. Here's how it works. On your turn, you take the gamepad, and 3 to 5 randomly selected attractions will appear at the bottom of the screen depending on the amount of players you have. However, you're also shown who you'll go up against depending on what you pick, unless the attraction is multiplayer, in which case everyone jumps in on the fun. There is one exception to this rule, however, and it's The Legend of Zelda Battle Quest. But regardless, you pick a game, do the best you can, and just hope that your opponent doesn't completely wipe the floor with you. And whoever has the most points at the end wins. But, as usual, there are some extra features sprinkled in to keep things interesting. For one, as you get further into the game, some options might also give the winner double points, triple points, or let them completely swap points with the loser altogether. Another cool thing about this game is that if 2 players are about to compete, the players who are sitting out can place their bets on whoever they think will win before the game starts. And, as a bonus, guessing correctly will reward you with an extra 2 points. There's a good mix of strategy and luck, and I think it's only fair to put the attraction tour in the middle of the list. It's got a little bit of everything, including its own rules. 6. Pikmin Adventure. Alright, now we're getting into the games that are really good. Pikmin Adventure is a cooperative attraction that can be played with 1 to 5 people. It's a level-based game that puts you and your friends up against the many dangers of a far-off planet, or, as we know it, Earth. You take on the many misadventures of the unlucky Captain Olimar, as well as his plant-like companions, the Pikmin. Naturally, the player with the gamepad undertakes the role of Olimar, while the Wii remotes are the Pikmin. Player 1 is blue, player 2 is red, player 3 is yellow, and player 4 is white, which is a great lineup, even if that means there are no purple Pikmin, but it's fine, as they're too strong anyway. The players go through 16 levels, as well as 6 extra levels, and every single one of them has the same goal: get to Olimar's ship and escape. It doesn't matter whether that level also has a time limit or a boss battle, you'll always end up at the ship. Unless you run out of lives, that is. You see, a big problem with this game is that everyone shares a health bar, and even worse, you only get 3 lives. Yeah, it is, without a doubt, the worst thing about the attraction. I mean, if you find a large heart at any point in the level, your max health increases to 6, which is better, but you'll still need to always keep a close eye on how much health your team has. But what about the actual gameplay? Well, it's pretty fun. Each Pikmin player can run around and whack stuff, while Olimar can tap the screen on the gamepad to throw his own smaller Pikmin. And actually, Olimar can whistle to not only call his Pikmin back, but all of them, meaning he can just straight up throw the other players. One downside to this, however, is that Olimar can use this to just be a jerk, but if you shake the Wii remote, you can ignore it. Although gameplay might get a bit tedious and repetitive at times, it's always satisfying working together to take out a threat larger than yourself. And hey, if you suck too much to the point where you fail a level several times, a giant exclamation mark block will appear, and it'll boost your character's level to 50 if you break it and collect the nectar it drops, which, oh yeah, there's a level up system in this game. As you go through a level, you're bound to find tons of nectar hidden in question mark blocks and enemies, which, if you collect 3 of it, will level your character up. And if you get to level 5, your leaf becomes a bud, and at level 10, it blooms into a flower. These upgrades will make you faster and stronger, and they'll even give Olimar more Pikmin. But that's not all. There are even power-ups in this game. There are 3 different types you can get: a hammer, a fist, and a whip. They can give you different abilities, and they make the game a lot more interesting. Oh, and there are also rocks and bomb rocks that can be used as well. One final thing about this game is that aside from the story mode, there's also a versus mode where the Pikmin battle Olimar to see who can collect the most nectar within the time limit. It's cool, but not as cool as the story mode. 5. Donkey Kong's Crash Course. This is, without a doubt, the best of the single-player games, at least in my opinion. Donkey Kong's Crash Course is an attraction where you have to use tilt controls to maneuver your way through 4 stages, each of which has 10 areas. You take control of a weird little cart thing, and you have to save Lady from Donkey Kong, which means you've got to make your way through a plethora of obstacles. You'll end up not only using tilt controls, but the L and R sticks, as well as the shoulder and face buttons. You can even use the mic at some points. It's super fun. But yeah, that's it. It's such a simple yet effective game, and although you'll have to beat the game multiple times in order to unlock all of the stages, I think it's perfectly fine considering the sheer amount of times I've played it. Stage 1 is pretty simple. It's just a mix of the different mechanics, and things slowly get harder as you need to watch your timing. Stage 2 is harder, and it's got a bunch of really fun obstacles that'll definitely keep you alert. As for stages 3 and 4, they're just repeats of the first 2, except the difficulty is ramped up. Plus, you only have 10 minutes to complete everything, which may sound like a lot, but it really isn't if you aren't paying attention. But hey, on a different note, when you play this game, you must always remember our Lord and Savior, the Y button. Let me explain. If you screw up but have really good reaction time, you can press the Y button to reset yourself to the last checkpoint flag you crossed, which can be a lifesaver, even with the occasional 1-ups you get. Oh, and one more thing I have yet to mention, the aesthetic of this game is incredible. It's all set on a giant chalkboard, and it looks and sounds amazing. And even better, you can use the up and down arrows on the gamepad to zoom in and out on the TV, meaning you can look at the entire board at once if you have a second. Overall, this game is incredible. It's always my go-to solo attraction, and I do not see that changing anytime soon. 4. The Legend of Zelda Battle Quest. Can we just all agree that it's really hard to get bored of this game? The Legend of Zelda Battle Quest is a cooperative attraction in which you and your friends work together to recover all of the Triforces, as well as tear apart anything that gets in your way. Each player controls a different colored Link, and for some reason, this is the only multiplayer attraction that cannot be played with 5 people. Still, there are 2 modes. First is the main quest, where up to 4 players go through 9 levels collecting every Triforce, as well as 5 extra levels. The second mode is Time Attack, where a single player utilizes their bow and arrows to defeat a wave of enemies as fast as possible. There are 3 levels here, and it's also the mode used in Attraction Tour. Anyway, back to the main quest. The gamepad player has a bow and arrows, while the players with Wii remotes each get a sword and shield. It's a pretty linear game as your character automatically moves forward unless you're in a fight or crouched with your shield. And just like in Pikmin Adventure, everyone shares a health bar, meaning you can easily blame a loss on your friend if they took more damage than you. Speaking of damage, I think it's really cool how in this game, a player's costume gets a tear if they take damage, meaning they can end up looking pretty beat up if they take a lot of damage. But back to the gameplay, there will be loads of enemies trying to stop you, and they can also have weapons and shields, meaning you'll have to strike correctly in order to avoid getting knocked back by the recoil, thus giving them a chance to strike. Thankfully, even with all of the enemies and bosses in this game, there's also hearts hidden around the levels, blocking with your shield, and the ability to charge up your sword or arrow for a more powerful attack. It's definitely a repetitive game, but it's always fun using motion controls to best your foes. Not to mention, you can also choose to hit your friends to stun them for a second. 3. Metroid Blast. Metroid Blast is a shoot-'em-up gun game where you take on the role of Samus Aran, an intergalactic bounty hunter, and you have to go through 20 levels, as well as 10 extra levels, either defeating enemies or collecting tokens with your face on them. The gamepad player gets to ride around in the airship, while player 1 gets the Various suit, player 2 has the Fusion suit, player 3 is just green Samus, and player 4 has the Gravity suit. All 4 suits play the same, so different players won't have different abilities. It's a bummer, but it's fair. Speaking of play though, there are a variety of abilities that you'll have at your disposal while venturing through space with your friends. The gamepad can dash and charge up a missile, while the Wii remotes can morph into a ball, which can be used to teleport up and down structures via teleporting pads, as well as make you faster and smaller, although it means you can't shoot, grapple onto the gunship, do a dodge roll, and charge up a fireable bomb. And something about this game that separates it from the other 2 co-op attractions is that everyone actually gets their own health. You each start with 3 HP, and if you lose it all, you can just run around in a Zero suit with a flashlight. But don't worry, you can be revived. Enemies can drop hearts when defeated, and if you pick one up, you get 1 HP back. There are also these floating containers placed around each stage, and breaking one can drop either a heart or a question mark. It may sound confusing, but collecting a question mark will give you a random item, and it can be one of 3 things: a timed invincibility shield, a helmet that gives you rapid fire, or a charged shot that freezes enemies. They'll be very useful to you, as long as you don't shoot them. If a heart or a question mark takes any damage, they'll break and be unable to collect. One more thing I should mention is that just like in Pikmin Adventure, failing a level too much will give you the option to use a golden helmet that doubles your HP and lets you shoot faster. Well, that's it. For the story mode, that is. There are actually 2 more modes in this game, but they aren't too much. Both of them are battle modes, but one puts the gamepad against the Wii remotes, while the other one has everyone fight each other on foot. It's not bad. And actually, I have a confession to make. I cannot stand playing this game with a Wii remote and nunchuck. I only enjoy using the airship, which really just goes to show how great this game is, even if I can't for the life of me get good at using the Wii remote and nunchuck. 2. Mario Chase. Mario Chase is probably the most simple of the competitive attractions, and yet it's so incredibly replayable to the point where it never gets old. The gamepad player controls Mario, and they have to run out the clock while also trying to avoid getting tackled by the Wii remote players who control a blue, purple, green, or yellow toad depending on their player number. Each game goes like this. Mario gets a 10-second head start to run away from the starting point, and then the toads use a proximity meter at the bottom of their screen to help them track down the runaway plumber. After 30 seconds, a superstar will appear at the starting point, and if Mario manages to nab it before it disappears, he'll gain invincibility that lets him knock the toads over if they come into contact, as well as super speed. However, these effects are only temporary, so once the star's powers wear off, everything returns to normal. There are a total of 3 stages to play on, each with their own styles and layouts. The first one is the Chase Arena, which is a pretty simple course that lets you run around without any obstacles. The second stage is Mud River Run, which is a level split into 4 parts, each of which is like its own little world. Too bad they're separated by, you guessed it, mud. This is by far the worst stage in my opinion because the mud makes you significantly slower, and it really just gets rid of the fast-paced energy that's supposed to be there. I mean, there are bridges that can be crossed to avoid getting dirty, but they disappear after Mario runs across them for the first time. I just don't like it. The The third stage is called Slide Hill, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's an arena with a giant hill in the middle, and there are large metal slopes everywhere that the players can use to slip and slide downward. Unlike in Mud River Run, the obstacles in this stage make everything go much faster, and it's incredible. Just don't waste your time trying to go up the slides. You won't get far. Something cool about each stage is that they each have two variants, a smaller one for 2 to 3 players, and a larger one for 4 to 5. It's just a really cool feature. But hey, you want to know what's not cool? Playing this game with 2 players. If there's only one Toad playing, you'll get 2 Yoshi Kart companions that not only announce Mario's location every few seconds, but they also use their tongues to punch Mario, briefly stunning him. One Yoshi would have been fair enough, but the fact that there are 2 of them can really rig the game in the Toad's favor if Mario isn't constantly alert. Not to mention that the 2 Dino Dopes can even stun lock him. Regardless, this game is incredible, and even with 2 players, you'll almost always have a blast running around in each stage. I highly recommend it. 1. Luigi's Ghost Mansion. Well, we all saw this coming. Luigi's Ghost Mansion is a bone-chilling attraction where the gamepad player controls a gold ghost, while players 1, 2, 3, and 4 control Luigi, Mario, Waluigi, and Wario respectively. And let me just take a moment to mention how that is the best way they could have done that lineup. They could have just gone with 4 different colored Luigis like in Scarescraper, but no. Nintendo decided to be awesome and make not only both Mario Brothers playable, but their rivals as well. Props to you, Nintendo. You guys are the best. And even if you don't have 5 players, the ghost trackers who aren't playing are replaced by Monitas who will not only wander around, but will even spin their light in a circle if the ghost is near them. They're really helpful without making things painfully easy. Just try to stay away from them because they turn off their lights and stop moving if you're close to them. Anyway, the ghost trackers have to go through a whopping 5 stages, which is the most of any competitive attraction. And just like in Mario Chase, each stage has 2 variants, and the one you play on depends on the player count. But what are the stages, and what do they do? Well, let's start off with Stage 1, the main floor. This stage has a simple maze-like layout, and it lets the players get a good feel for the haunted house while roaming through its rooms and halls. Stage 2 is the basement. This stage is also a simple maze, but rather than walls, there's a bunch of old junk that you'll have to maneuver around. Stage 3 is the research lab. It's a cool mechanical level, and it'll even have 1 or 3 conveyor belts depending on the stage size. The conveyor belts will move anybody who walks on them. Too bad the ghost floats. Stage 4 is the storage room. It's the same as the basement, but it has suits of armor in it that will spaz uncontrollably if a person walks in front of it, causing their Wii remote to rumble wildly for a bit. This can be a big problem because the rumble feature is used in this game to tell the ghost trackers that the ghost is close to them, and the stronger the rumble, the closer the ghost is. Thankfully, there is a way to prevent the knights from ever interfering in the first place. If you shine your light on one for long enough, it'll fall apart and be unable to do anything for a short amount of time. It's not permanent, but it's your best bet. The last stage is Monita's Rooftop. This is a stage with no walls, but what it lacks in partitions, it makes up for in Monita's. There are a bunch of them, and they even have sirens on their head that will be either green or red depending on if the ghost is near them. As for the gameplay, the ghost trackers have to shine their lights on the ghost to deplete its health. If it gets to 0, the trackers win. The ghost, on the other hand, has to make all of the trackers faint, or at least the human ones. The Monitas don't count and cannot be captured. The ghost can make a tracker faint by just simply touching them. Any physical contact will result in the game pausing as the camera zooms into the ghost becoming visible and automatically grabbing the tracker and shaking them around for a couple seconds before dropping them and becoming invisible again. After this sequence, the tracker loses a life. If they have another, they'll go back to their spawn point. If not, they'll lay there unconscious unless they're revived. But I'll get to that in a bit. So, how many lives does everyone get? Well, the ghost always starts at 100 HP, but the number of lives each tracker gets depends on the number of players. If there's only 1 tracker, they get 3 lives. If there's 2, they each get 2 lives. And if there's 3 to 4, well, YOLO. Next up, we've got all of the little features that make this attraction all the better. To start, I'll talk about reviving. If a ghost tracker runs out of lives, they'll lay on the floor unconscious unless they're revived. A revive can be pulled off by you if you keep your light on a fallen friend, or friends, as it slowly fills a heart meter from the middle. And once that heart is full, that's it. Congratulations, you've successfully resurrected someone. Reviving another player is one of the coolest things you can do in this attraction, but it does have one major downside. While reviving someone, you're completely vulnerable, so you always end up constantly checking behind you to make sure you're not about to join your friend on the floor. Aside from revives, there are a bunch of other super cool things in this game. One of them is a battery. But why would you need a battery, I don't hear you asking? Well, to make sure you can't camp in a corner and run out the clock, which would end in a draw, all players' flashlights have a power bar that slowly depletes with light use. When a flashlight gets low on power, a battery will appear in a random location that will refill your flashlight's power if you collect it. And sometimes, instead of a regular battery, a big battery will appear. And if you collect that, you'll temporarily get a super light that lights up more area and not only does more damage to the ghosts, but also revives others much faster. A few other cool features include the ghost trackers being able to sidestep to keep their light going in one direction while moving, lightning strikes that may temporarily reveal where the ghost is, the ghost being able to dash, which lets them move faster in exchange for being visible, and one more thing. Unlike the average gold ghost, the gamepad player can use magic. They can hold down ZL and ZR to charge up a meter, and when it's full, they can release the buttons to create a purple vortex under every ghost tracker that, after a couple seconds, will completely drain the flashlight battery if anyone's still standing on one. This includes the Monitas, who are always too slow to get to safety in time. The only downside to this for the gamepad player is that once they start charging the meter, they'll be completely visible and unable to move until they either let go of the shoulder buttons early or a couple seconds pass after they use the ability, meaning it can backfire miserably if it isn't used in the right spot. Overall, this is the best attraction in my opinion. It's got a really simple concept, but there's also a bunch of small features thrown in as well to give the game more complexity, and it's a blast. But anyway, that's my ranking on not only all of the attractions in Nintendo Land, but all the other things to do as well. I mean, you can also go around and look at the other players' stats, but that's not a game, so it doesn't count. If I missed something, feel free to tell me in the comments, but just know that I worked really hard on this video to be just the right amount of detail, and I'm really proud of it. A couple things I actually didn't mention though are that 1, each solo attraction utilizes a feature called Assist Play. It allows the second player to join in with a Wii remote to help out the gamepad player, and they do something different in each one. The second thing I didn't talk about is the stamps. Each attraction has 5 stamps to collect, and they're basically achievements. Unfortunately, if I included these things, this video would be a lot longer. Oh, and see this date? Yeah, Nintendo Land's 11th birthday was on November 18th, so I just wanted to say happy birthday to Nintendo Land. Anyway, I'm gonna go now, so feel free to check out the videos on the screen if you want to see more. Happy Thanksgiving and brush your teeth. Oh man, that was long. I'm gonna take a nap.